Hey guys, this is Klaus from Team Hoshigumi, and today we'll do a deck profile on Nubatama, the after image deck profile. Alright, let's break it down with the grade 0 lineup. First of all, our starter will be the Kamojigusa. I run 2 copies of him. Run a playset of the Fighters Collector heal triggers. 4 generic critical triggers. 4 of the Noroi critical triggers. Essentially, when Shiranui attacks, put it to the soul, give it 5,000, and draw a card. And then 4 of the Onibidoshi triggers, stand triggers. These are useful because if you have less cards than your opponent, give it when you place it on rear guard, you choose one of your units, give it 3,000, draw a card, put it back to the deck, and shuffle. So that is our grade 0 lineup. Now for the grade 1 lineup, I run a playset of the After Image PG because if you know how to master, your Counter Blast, you don't really need the Unflip PG. These are better because if there's a PG on the drop zone, when you boost it, you Soul Blast 1, and your opponent needs to discard one of their bind cards to the drop zone. I run a playset of Dreadnoughts. Dreadmaster. On hit skill, whenever it's boosting, you Counter Blast 1. If it hits, you Counter Blast 1, and your opponent needs to discard 1 card from their hand. I run 3 of the Stride Fodders, and 2 of the Chigire Gume. Alright, moving to the grade 2 lineups. I run 2 of the Hashiribi. Can't even say this shit correctly. But yeah. Then 3 of the Nibi Katabira. Let me fix the cam. There we go. 3 of this. And then 3 of the Tamahagane. Mr. Tibbers. And 3 of the Miyabis. For the grade 3 lineup, I run 1 Kegare Shinmyo, my bad. And then 3 copies of Kuchikiri Konge. No, it's Kongo. Right, I was right. And then 4 of the OG Shiranui. There we go. Alright, moving to the G units. 1 of the GB8. Playset of Ataga Lord. 2 of Sukamura Khan. 1 of Godatsu Surakan. 1 Jorurik Khan. 1 Seabreeze. 1 Gonru Khan. That all sounds like Khan or something. 1 Seabreeze. 2 of Abutatashi. And 2 of the new G guards called Zashi Kihime. Alright, so let me break down the deck for you now. I've gone over the deck profile. Or deck recipe. Alright, GB8 skill is pretty useful, but more than likely, if you know how to play this deck correctly, you don't need to go into GB8. You finish them off by GB3, GB5. But essentially, during the turn while this is on the field, anytime your opponent sends 1 card from their hand to Guardian Circle, then if you Counter Blast or Soul Blast 1, they need to discard 2 cards from their hand. Now the Taga Lord are useful because Taga Lords are useful because when you attack, you Counter Blast 1, your opponent needs to bind 1 card from their hand. And if they have 3 or less, this gains an automatic crit. Sukamura Khan is useful because when you're going against decks like Bermuda Triangles or Big Belly, or Luard that involves a lot of hand power, this destroys their hand. Literally, when you go straight into Sukamura Khan, activate Sukamura Khan's skill first, so that will then choose only 4 cards to keep, the rest gets binded. Then use Shiranui's skill to bind one of the rear guards and discard 1 card from their hand. So now they only have 3 cards to block. So, you know, rape them afterwards. Alright. The new G guards are useful because when you put this on the Guardian Circle, your opponent may choose to discard 1 card from their hand. If they do not discard, then this gains 20,000 shield. These guys are the OG G guards for Nubatamas, the Abudatashi. Essentially, if your opponent has 6 or less cards from their hand, then this gains 5,000 shield. Dismal, I just throw in there just in case I want to secure one of my rear guards, but also I use it mainly to flip with the new G guard. Gomrakan is a pretty good card when you want to restrict a lot of their rear guards. Essentially, you want to get rid of it for this turn when you're attacking. When this enters the circle, the Vanguard Circle, opponent chooses 2 cards from the 2 cards on their field. The rest gets binded. And also, if your opponent's bound, let's see. If 3 or more cards were bounded, your opponent needs to choose 2 cards from his bind zone and put them in a drop zone. So, really good against like War Paladin decks. Sea Breeze, well, that's pretty much self-explanatory there. It's good on its own. And Jorurakan is a good card when you stride over this guy, the Kuchikiri Kongo. By striding onto him, you get to counterblast 2 cards, counterblast 2, and then you need to choose one of your opponent's rear guard, bind it, and your opponent chooses 1 card from their hand and bind it face down. But at the end of your turn, those cards do not return to their hand, it goes to the drop zone instead. Alright, moving on to the next unit is this guy, the Gedatsurakan. Essentially, it's an on-hit skill. If this Vanguard hits your opponent's Vanguard, you get to, your opponent needs to choose 1 card from their hand and discard it. So a combo that I like to do is using Dreadmaster as a support. So if this hits, they need to get rid of 2 cards instead of just 1. And only cost that you need to do is a counterblast 1. Alright, now moving on to, let's see, some of these combos and main card explanations. Your ideal wombo combo essentially is you're going to be at damage 4 damage, and this is going to be your Vanguard. And then you're going to break ride it. By break riding, you gain 10,000 unless you stride over it, which you're going to do. The 10,000 is not really that important. The real important part is by break riding, your opponent needs to bind 1 card and discard 1 card from his skill. And then Shiranui, when you stride over it, makes your opponent bind one of their rear guards, and they have to discard 1 card from their hand. So by just doing that alone, before whatever the stride skill it is, you're gonna get rid of 3 cards essentially. So that's really good. Miyabi is good, especially when you get it supported in GB1. So, like the combo I like to use is when a Taiga Lord's here, let's say Miyabi is being supported by Dreadmaster, if I can find it. Yeah, my ideal combo will be a Taiga Lord, Miyabi, they're being both boosted by Dreadnought. So, Miyabi being boosted, you counterblast 1, gains 3,000, and you randomly select 1 card from your opponent's hand and bind it face down. And then, obviously, that's going to help limit their hand, which sets up for a Taiga Lord skill, which, if they have 3 or less, remember, this gains a crit. And if that hits also, you get to discard 1 card, so it's a really good combo. Let's see, what other cards? Oh, Tamagane. Essentially, he's a really good card. There's not a GB1 skill, it's just auto skill. When this enters Vanguard Circle or Rear Guard Circle, you get to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it. Let's see, another thing I like to do is with this guy. So, generally, there are times when I don't have Shiranui in my hand, and that becomes a problem for me. So what I would like to do is, let's say I had this guy in my hand. I'll call this out, my Strike Fighter out, show one of my cards, show my grade 3, get Shiranui into my hand, so I could pull off the combo later. Now this is obviously going to stay on the field, so how you can recover that back to your hand without an after image ability is to use the Nibikatabira GB1 skill, Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1. When this enters a rear guard circle, you get to choose one of your units, give it 3,000 and the after image ability, and also give itself a 3,000. So that's how I'll recover it back to my hand. But I guess the last thing I'll go over is the staple cards from Nubatama for Dominate. Alright, so I would use the new starter, but aside from that, the Grade 0, the trigger lineup is pretty much the same. I would of course run 3 of the Stride Fodders. If I can find the third one, I just put it away. Oh, there we go. 3 of the Stride Fodders. 3 of the OG Shiranui. I'll run a playset of the new one, the Dominate one. I wouldn't run any of the other Grade 3s. They'll just go bye-bye. Probably 2, if not 3, of Miyabi. Mind you, this is for a hybrid deck, not pure dominant deck. And then probably 2, if not 3, of the Tamahagane. And then probably 3. I'll probably down from playset to 3 of the Dreadmaster to put in more of the Grade 1 for dominant cards. And then for the PG, I think I would use a new PG. If not this, I have to play test a little bit more on CFA to make a final judgment on that one. But that will be the staple cards to keep in the main deck. Now for the generation, the Stride Zone, I would probably run only 2 of the Taga Lords, keep the 1 GB8, 1 Sukamura-kan, Seabreeze, and run new G guards, 1 of the OG G guards, and maybe 1 of the Fighters Collector G guard, and then maybe the 2 of the new G guards. But that's about it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something out of it. Have fun with it, I guess. Oh, keep in mind, if you're playing against Nubatama decks that are after image, then this is how you know if they're cheating. If they return units from the field, they need to have 6 or less cards in their hand. Also, they get to only return those cards if you're returning bind cards from your bind zone to your hand. If they somehow return the units from the field to their hand without you returning bind cards from the bind zone, then they are cheating and call it out. I've seen people who did this kind of shit, and they're like, oh, it's my, Nubatama is my main clan, but they still try to do that bullshit. Call them out on it. Remember, 6 cards or less, and only if you're returning bind cards from your bind zone to your hand at the end of their turn. Otherwise, they're actually playing the card right. Alright guys, see you guys later, and give it a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, you filthy scrub.